I'm just doing a quick little thing, ladies and gentlemen.
With no music?
Well, I mean, I was trying it, and then it didn't feel right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
we're just going to raw dog it.
Oh, you'll warm it up eventually.
Like, no music, no nothing. I'm just doing it.
I actually had stuff to play. I forgot to hit the live button. So, as always, we got Oldweiler Sunset Highway. We're here. There's the music for you. It only took 41 seconds to get into the episode. It's all fancy trash cans next to Captain Boring. 4th and 1 podcast, anchor.fm/4th and 1. Everywhere else, including YouTube, once we get there, 4th and 1 podcast at 4th and 1 podcast. Micaiah, this week's going to be a little bit different because I have a bone to pick.
Uh-oh.
With the college football playoff committee.
Shocker.
And their rankings. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been out. Hopefully we don't have a weird upload issue like we did last week. Apologies in the meantime. We have the playoff release yesterday. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Normally we record this on a Tuesday. Happy birthday, Carrie, Micaiah's wife. We're recording it on her birthday. Luckily, she had a test to take, so I could steal him for a couple minutes. There's just so much wrong with this. First off, Clemson at 4. I'm just going to go over them. We'll hit them up real quick. Let me just go over. Let me just go over real quick. We got Clemson at 4. I don't hate Tennessee, but Georgia below Ohio State I have an issue with.
Well, give the top 10. Because people might not know the top 10.
Sure.
Top
okay.
10.
Top 10. Top 10 is valid. You know.
Okay.
Youths. Number 1, Tennessee. 2, Ohio State. 3, Georgia. 4, Clemson. First 2 out. 5 and 6, Michigan and Alabama, respectively. 7 is TCU. 8 is Oregon. 9 is USC. 10 is LSU. And that is your top 10. And I am laughing because a 6-2 LSU team is behind a very good 8-1 Ole Miss team, a very good 7-1 UCLA team.
I have a bigger problem with them being in front of UCLA because they beat Ole Miss. I don't have a problem with LSU being in front of Ole Miss just because they did beat them by
that's fair.
20-plus points the other week.
And didn't UCLA beat USC or Oregon? Which one did they beat?
They beat Utah.
That's who I'm thinking of. Who's at 14?
And USC lost to Utah.
Which I have an issue with Illinois being below Penn State at 16. And I get it. After the top 6, we don't really care, but I do. It's the principle of things.
Okay, so my first thoughts are that the committee put LSU 10 to prop Tennessee being 1. And then that's also if Alabama beats them on Saturday night, then the committee will use that and say, oh, Alabama beat a top 10 LSU team. LSU lost to Florida State in the Caesars Sportsbook Dome, which used to be the Superdome, which is in Louisiana, so basically a home game.
Yep.
And for most of that game, they looked atrocious.
They put a 5-3 Texas ranked over a 7-1 Independent Liberty team. Now, I'm not saying that that's anything. UCF sitting there at 6-2 at 25 in both the AP and the CFP polls. But a 5-3 Texas team. I'm flabbergasted, to be honest with you. Texas isn't in any of the... Texas isn't in... I didn't even see Texas at 24. They snuck in. I get what you're saying. By the way, Georgia's number 1 in the AP. Tennessee's number 1 in the CFP. That means we have 2 number 1 teams taking on each other this Saturday, which
First time ever,
which I'm sure we'll be covering. I do have an issue with Georgia not being number 1. Not that Tennessee doesn't deserve it, because they do. But to me, Georgia hasn't lost that number 1 spot. They won the national champion. Why are we knocking them out of first place? If you switch Tennessee and Georgia around, there's nothing wrong with that. I get what you're saying with Alabama and LSU, but
The problem to me is that the committee is contradicting. Because I watched the show last night, and they always have the head of the college football playoff selection committee on to go over things. I have a problem because they put Ohio State at 3 and Michigan at 5, or Ohio State at 2 and Michigan at 5, even though their strength of schedule are kind of the same. They both played no one in non-conference, etc. Ohio State does have Notre Dame. Michigan basically played the three of the worst teams in the FBS, but treated them like 3 of the worst teams in the FBS and basically played perfect during those games. And they said, because Ohio State's offense just looks better, right?
Right.
And Tennessee is number 1 above Georgia because their offense looks better. But then when you go and you do teams like Texas, so they're using their eyes for that, and I'm okay if anyone from
the eye test,
if they want to use the eye test. But then you look at Texas, and you're just like, how is a 5-3 Texas team who blew an 18-point lead in Stillwater, who, close loss to Alabama, but should have won that game, and then lost to Kansas State? Are you kidding me? And then you look at UCLA, who's 11 or 12, and you're just who beat Utah. USC lost to Utah, and how is your eye test telling you that UCLA is not better than USC or LSU? They're just contradicting themselves a lot, and I don't understand why.
Well, and Clemson has not passed the eye test at all this year.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Clemson has not really passed the eye test at all.
And I get we can doubt in Michigan. I surprisingly have no issue with Michigan being 5. I'd prefer them at 4.
But they have to be over Clemson.
But they have to be over Clemson. So you have to put Michigan at 4. I'm sorry.
What about TCU? An undefeated TCU team.
Yeah, and everybody's saying that's the worst 8-0 team in the world. They're still 8-0. And mind you, when they beat Kansas and beat Kansas State and beat Texas...
Yes. 4 top 25 wins on the year. They have more than anybody else.
Guys, I get that Kansas kind of fell off a cliff, but they lost their momentum. I get it.
Kansas is still a good football team.
TCU is a good football team.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I don't get the disrespect for the Big 12 in general. And so Robert was, giving me some scenarios today at work. And he was giving me scenarios where basically where 2 undefeated Power 5 conference champions, and I think in this case the 2 undefeateds were Clemson and TCU, not get into the college football playoff because Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee get in. And I'm like, if that's what we're doing, if we're not letting not 1 but 2 undefeated Power 5 conference champions not in, and we're putting a 1-loss SEC conference champion in, the 1-loss runner-up, and then the one that didn't even make the championship game in, then what are we doing? Then every year, when the poll comes out, it should be 2 spots are reserved for SEC, and then everyone else is fighting for 2 spots. Because now we're just getting ridiculous, and we're not doing it right. You can't, just because a team, the resume still has to mean something. And the bear on the show, for those of you who watch College Game Day, you know who I'm talking about. He's the bear. He kind of does the bets and things like that. He's like, the committee is just making up rules at this point. And everyone's like, no, bear. And he's like, they are. Then give me the foundation that they're putting these rankings on, with Clemson being behind Michigan when Michigan's looked better than Clemson, right? Why is Alabama in front of TCU? Why is TCU at 7? At the very worst, they should be 6. And why isn't Ohio State or Georgia 1? I understand Tennessee's had the best win out of everyone, and Tennessee's on this little run, and they beat Kentucky. All of Tennessee's major wins have come at home, and they almost lost to Bama, and They're not using that eye test for how poorly Kentucky is. Kentucky is a one-dimensional offense with Chris Rodriguez. You shut down the running game. Will Levis either is not talented enough or does not have the weapons to be able to produce an offense to keep up with Tennessee. So what are we doing, committee? Pick a style. Pick how you're going to evaluate these teams, whether it be resume, eye test. I don't really care. Whether you pick names from a hat, I don't care. But you need to stick with it and then go with that on national television.
Technically, they beat a now number 10 LSU team at home.
Well, and that's the other thing.
LSU was at home.
Yeah, and they beat them on the road, and that's the other thing. They're using the number 10 spot. They put LSU at 10, a 2-loss LSU 10, to pump up Tennessee and Alabama, and then Georgia later on in the season. And do not tell me that's not what they're doing, because that's exactly what they're doing. Even if they don't know they're doing it on purpose, they're doing it on purpose.
No, that's exactly what they're doing. This is why I have an issue as Tennessee goes to Georgia this weekend. Was that the 3:30 game I just saw on CBS?
Yes, it is. Correct. Game day.
I'm sure game day is doing there. It's one of the biggest. That's like 2 versus 3 Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, it might be. It could be.
It's one of the biggest games.
Tennessee, Alabama is going to be hard to top. Going to be hard to top, but this might be very close to game of the year situation.
For sure. And honestly, if Tennessee beats Georgia, they deserve to be there. The issue that I'm having, to go more prove your point, is if TCU and Clemson played next week, this Saturday, I wouldn't be so sure that TCU wouldn't win that game.
Oh, I'm almost with the...
I've seen enough of Clemson to know that...
Wake Forest kind of proved that TCU, I think, would kind of dismantle them a little bit. Because of Wake Forest, their vertical passing game exposed the secondary of Clemson. Simeon, in that live cast we did, whose name did we talk about 90% of the time? Do you remember his name?
No.
Quentin Johnston. Remember that receiver, he had like 240 yards that game. He's been on a tear. He's been ridiculously good. He would shred the secondary.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's like 215, 6'4". Yeah, like he's a huge dude.
He's a monster of a man. And so TC and don't give me their defense is bad. In the second half of all 3 games, so in their last 3 games, they've given up 28, 24, 21 in the first half. In the second half of all their games, this is what they've given up. 0, 6, and 0. So don't tell me they don't have a defense. Clemson's defense is better. I will grant it 100%. I think Clemson is probably has the second best or the first best defense in the country. I will concede that to Clemson. Teams are not able to run on Clemson. But so
they're allowing 262 passing yards and 140 rushing yards average a game. TCU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Total yardage is about 402, which isn't fantastic. They're playing Texas Tech this weekend.
What's the points per game?
44.
No. The defensive points, allowed points per game.
27.
Yeah,
the issue with TCU is you don't get in a defensive battle with TCU. And they have such good athletes that your defense can't win a game against TCU.
Without you, correct. And that's the thing that's different in between college and the NFL, and why I like college more than the NFL is because in the NFL you can say defense wins you championship games, right? You got to have a defense that that allows people to score about 18 points per game, somewhere around there, and then your offense, muddles around 25. That doesn't work in college. Your offense has to probably average 40 plus. Because that takes into account non-conference, weaker teams, and stronger teams. Your offense has to be the reason why. Let's look back at the past national championship. Let's just run the gamut here. Let's start with the last year's winner. Guess what? Stetson Bennett had to go 8 for 8 down the stretch with huge throws to win. But their defense was amazing, but that's the outlier. Before that, it was The best offense. Sorry, my wife must be turning on lights with voice activation because she's turning them all on in the basement. I apologize. In Alabama, second greatest offense I've ever seen. The year before that, LSU, greatest offense I've ever seen. Trevor Lawrence the year before that. Alabama the year before that with Tua. Before that, it was go back. It's all great offenses. This year it might be Tennessee. Tennessee's offense is ridiculously
For the
good.
record, Clemson has allowed 332 total average yards a game.
Right.
Yes, granted, they're under 100 rushing yards allowed. But let's go
Which conference is weaker, the ACC or the Big 12?
ACC, hands down.
So
I saw that as a hot take on, I think, Fox's college football Instagram channel, and I'm like, that's not even a question for me.
I think going into the season,
by the way, hold on, I'm sorry.
Yep,
if
go.
we're comparing defenses,
Yep.
Michigan,
Yeah.
250 yards
Yeah.
a game, average.
And you can't say they haven't been tested because they're non-conference. Absolutely, they haven't been tested. I mean, UConn, they got 5 wins now on the year. I think 4 or 5 wins.
Okay, yeah. Michigan, 41 points a game. Okay, that's what they're averaging on offense. 11 points on defense is what they're allowing. Guys, that includes their Big Ten games. 10 points to Iowa. 14 points to Iowa. 10 points to Indiana, 17 points to PSU, who had a fantastic defense and has a fantastic defense. The only reason PSU is ranked as above Illinois is to make Ohio State and Michigan look good. The worst their defense did was 27 points against Maryland.
And that was their first real game. That was the first game after their non-conference.
They got Rutgers. They have a quarterback who, at least, I don't know now because he did not look too good throwing the ball this past game, but he really hadn't had to throw the ball until this past game, was leading the nation in completion percentage. And you're ranking them below Clemson.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm all for doubting because it's Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely.
The money line on Rutgers, and I'm going to look up UConn's thing, is negative 10,000.
Yeah.
That's how good Michigan is.
They're 26-point favorites. The only reason the game on Sunday or on Saturday, against Michigan State, and we'll get into the aftermath of Michigan State here, I hope, was not 49-7, was the fact that Michigan's offense stalled in the red zone. Michigan's offense is not sexy enough because of your point, Simeon. They don't throw the ball a lot. But what they do is they run the ball. No one can stop their running game. No one has been able to. And we're like, oh, well, here comes Penn State. Penn State's got a great run defense. I said that.
Right.
I said that. Me.
Right.
I said Penn State's front seven is great. Michigan ran for 418 yards on Penn State.
Yeah.
And they haven't slowed down. Michigan State knew the run was coming, loaded the box with 7 people, shooting linebackers in the gaps and everything. Blake Corum, a measly 30 carries, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I understand, and I'm okay with Michigan being 5. I'm not okay with Clemson being behind them.
In front of them, you mean?
In front of them, I'm sorry. I have a big problem, and I want to rank my 6 or 10, and I want you to do the same. I have a big problem with TCU being 7.
Yep.
And I have a big problem with LSU being 10.
Yep.
So you want to rank?
Yeah, here's my ranking.
Yeah, hit it.
Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Tennessee. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Michigan. You want to know what those 4 have in common?
They're all undefeated?
They're all in the AP poll top 4. That's the AP poll top 4. Guys, why are we saying when we come to college football that the AP, the Associated Press, has it correct?
Don't you rip the AP, though, at the beginning of the year?
I do. I rip the AP at the beginning of the year, and then I say it's useless when once the college football playoff ranking comes out. But now all of a sudden, I'm saying, hello, It makes sense. Clemson is 5, Alabama is 6, and TCU is 7. Now, that I don't agree with. I'm putting TCU at 5. They deserve that. I'll put Clemson at 6, and I'll put Alabama at 7. Then I'm putting in Oregon, UCLA, and Ole Miss, because fuck LSU.
Okay, great. Excellent. I don't really have any problems with that. I really don't. My top 10 would be Ohio State number 1. I'm still on that bandwagon. And Saturday, just because they played a close game and then scored 28 points, if that defensive end, JT Tuimoloau, is going to play like that all year, then it's over for everyone because he single-handedly won that game, and it was ridiculous.
By the way, UConn is 4-5 to bring that back up before you
Thank
keep
you.
going.
4-5. So they're 2 away from bowl eligibility, which is pretty great because we thought they were going to be pretty bad. So
they're going to get it.
So I have Ohio State 1. I will give Tennessee 2 just because of how great that offense is. I will put Georgia at 3, and I'm going to disagree with everyone that Georgia has to. That they have to beat Tennessee, blah, blah, blah. If they trip up, if they lose to Tennessee, but somehow still find their way in the SEC title game and win, they're in without a doubt. Or even if they lose to Bama, they still might be in anyway. So Ohio State, Tennessee, I will have Georgia at 3. I'm going to have Michigan 4, Alabama 5. Alabama was about 3 feet away from winning that Tennessee game if that kick doesn't go wide. I will have TCU 6, Clemson 7. I'm going to have UCLA 8, Oregon 8, Oregon 7, UCLA 8, USC 9 where they're at, and Kansas State 10.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Kansas State.
Kansas State is sneaky good. And they probably would have they probably wouldn't have lost that game to TCU if their first 2 quarterbacks didn't leave the game because of injury.
Fair.
So, and I know that I kind of contradicted myself because I said TCU should be 4, but I think TCU should at least be top 6. Because right now, with them sitting at 7, the playoff committee is like, you got to win out, and you got to win your conference championship to get in. At 6, you can at least lose, still win your conference championship and get in. But with you sitting at 7, with 2 Pac-12 teams right behind you, and UCLA lurking, I don't get it.
Now that we've ranked our top 10, because I feel like we're kind of at a stopping point, I just want
absolutely.
everybody to know that on Tuesday, November 1st, we had 2 college football games.
We did.
The MAC decided to play on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Oh, they always do.
The first and the second.
They always do.
They're normally a Thursday, Friday type of guy.
No, the last 4 weeks of the year, they always go to Tuesday, Wednesday. It's amazing, isn't it?
And there's the Duke, man.
And there's the Duke.
Who even knows? Also, Army Air Force is playing 11:30 at CBS. They're playing in the Rangers' old baseball field.
Oh.
Which is they've kind of converted into a football/rugby venue. Part of the trio of games that is the Armed Forces rivalry. So I guess we're going to move on to, I don't know, talking about last week's games, even though there was nothing spectacular, I feel like.
Nothing spectacular. I feel like Penn State, their defense wrote a playbook against Ohio State, and I feel like it's the same playbook that Michigan wrote last year, which was make them go on long drives, make them kick field goals, and in the process of this offense is not built to go on long drives because eventually they will turn the ball over. I feel like Penn State kind of just reaffirmed that. So Michigan's got to feel like it's not going to walk into Columbus and give up 66 points because what they're doing on defense is not going to work. I feel like it's kind of going to be the same. Ohio State's secondary, I feel like, got exposed a little bit. So that is kind of concerning to me as a Michigan fan because J.J. McCarthy, this downfield passing game that was really potent in the first 4 weeks, has since gone pretty much silent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they kind of need to get that back, and maybe that's part of Jim Harbaugh's plan. Listen, we were all begging on Harbaugh. They don't throw the ball a lot. All they do is run. And what did they do last year? Just run all over Ohio State. I figured out why I finally hate Penn State. So that's good.
Why do you hate Penn State?
Well, I hate Penn State because when it looked like Penn State was going to win the game or had a great shot to win the game.
Yeah.
What I hate why I hate them is because they always back their way into their success.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning they'll get blown out either at Michigan or at Ohio State. Right? Whichever they travel to. And then they get the other one typically at home for that year. And because their home field advantage is so amazing, they will typically win that game or look good. And then they just let Michigan and Ohio State beat up on each other. And typically they lose to Michigan, beat Ohio State beats Michigan, then they're in exactly like 2016. It's a scenario like that. So they kind of back their way into success when really they're not the best team because when they go on the road, they're trash. And when they're at home, they're actually kind of decent. Now, thankfully, JT Tuimoloau made sure that scenario didn't happen, and the collision course between Ryan Day and Harbaugh in Columbus is still set. So Rutgers and Northwestern will try to mess that up this weekend. My better bet would be on Rutgers. However, I don't think either of those are happening.
You want to know something that is happening?
What is that?
UTSA is going for their seventh win. Now, I bring this up only.
Yes, I know why you're bringing it up.
Because 7.5 was the over-under on their wins this season. They're not favored. The line is even right now against the UAB Blazers.
Take them.
I mean, I'm going to take them just 'cause. But, yeah, they need 2 more wins, and we're getting down there. Also, a game that both of us thought was going to be a big game for the American Conference, which has disappointed this year, the American Conference.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Houston and SMU are playing this weekend. So, for those of you keeping track on that rivalry, in-state rivalry.
Speaking of the American, did you see the UCF Cincinnati game at all? Take that as a yes, you were not impressed.
I saw the result, and that's all I needed to see.
Well,
that was, for those of you listening, that was me hitting my head against the mic like I was hitting it against the wall.
And what
was that? Talking about crapping the bed so I don't swear again for our dearly beloved's ears, mind you, so they don't go to hell or whatever Mom thinks happens when I swear. What? You go from being in the college football playoff last year to losing one, okay, understandable game to what? Yeah. Losing to an in-conference champ? I thought Luke Fickell. I thought you had it figured out. Dude, I thought you were going to be that group. And granted, you're going to the Big 12 or whatever, I think, but come on.
Well, they also, they knocked Cincinnati's quarterback out halfway through the game because of targeting. Okay.
That's fair.
And then Cincinnati's knocked UCF's quarterback out. They lost to a backup quarterback. Late in that game, they were getting pounded on the ground. Pounded. UCF's last drive was basically run, touchdown. How are you going to do that? Mom, by the way, a third down zone read option on third down is when you put it in the belly of the running back, but you read the defensive end, and if he crashes down, meaning he tries to tackle the running back, quarterback pulls it out and runs, but if he stays wide, like he's not going to tackle the running back, and he's getting ready for the quarterback to keep it, he gives it to the running back. That's what a third down zone read option is.
And with that being said, we're going to actually go over to...
Which is how actually UCF kind of got the ball down the field to finish the game.
We're going to go over to Mom's Review. Mom's Review is brought to you by Mom. She pays us money, so we read her questions on the air. And that's basically how it goes. A little lesson for you. I thought you'd find this interesting. So I've been playing Luke's songs at the beginning of this. This is Olweiler, the All Right EP. Go listen to it if you like the first little snippets that you get. I thought those were copyright free. They're not. But I'd rather him get any future money that we make off of these videos than a big corporation doing it. So that's just a little copyright law for you. If you upload your own music, the person you use to upload it will copyright strike videos for you, but in a very nice way, so I don't mind it. What do they do now with the goalposts, Micaiah, at Tennessee?
Well,
this is referring to Tennessee tearing down the goalposts.
Well, they tore them down and they threw them in the river. I thought we covered that. 99% sure we covered that.
Well, she says that can't be good for the goalposts.
Yeah, well, it's not. They get brand new ones, which is like $50,000. By the way, everyone's having a big deal with Tennessee asking their students. You know, they started a GoFundMe to raise the money. Let's not get it twisted. Students are not giving money to this. It's
that's boosters.
It is boosters or Tennessee alums or Tennessee fans outside of the students, like people from home who want to be a part of this. So, or it's boosters. It's mainly boosters cutting massive checks.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat McAfee even said he gave to the fund. So let's just calm down, everyone. Mom, they got brand new ones. They did not. Yes, it's bad for the goalposts.
They probably recycled the other ones, if I had to guess, or
More
whoever
likely.
did recycled them. So that was Mom's Questions, brought to you by Mom. Anchor.fm/4th&1 for if you want your questions aired online as well. Micaiah.
Halloween weekend was very spooky. Spooky things happened on Halloween. Very Halloween. Number 9 OK State lost. Held to 32 yards rushing. Got embarrassed by Kansas State. Lost 48-0. Yeah, the number 9 team in the nation lost 48-0. Number 10 Wake Forest had 6 turnovers in the third quarter, and they lost to Louisville. Yep. 16 Syracuse lost to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame held Syracuse to 61 yards rushing. And finally, number 25 South Carolina, who's just the little engine that could, lost to Mizzou, who is the laughingstock of the SEC.
No, that's not true. They're the big brother of the laughingstock of the SEC.
Fair enough. So it was very scary for those teams in particular.
Also, speaking of more spooky things, the Beavers of Oregon State are ranked in the AP poll.
Are.
I mean, in the non-AP poll. Sorry, I just realized that, and I wanted to pull that up. They're 6-2. They're playing another 6-2 team.
Yes, Washington. Mm-hmm.
Why are we ranking the Oregon State Beavers?
They feel like they deserve them. I'm more intrigued with Tulane sitting there at 19 at 7-1.
That makes sense at least, because that means Tulane's sitting at the top of the American. I believe they're in the American.
They are. Yep.
So at least you're putting the top of the American up there. Also, luckily above UCF, who's 6-2. Mind you, so is Cincinnati. So I don't know what that is. Do you have a problem with them leaving Independent Liberty 7-1 out?
I don't, because I have a love-hate relationship with the Independents. Like, join a conference.
Well, Liberty hasn't been able to yet. I think they're planning on it. I don't know for
They're
sure.
joining Conference USA next year.
That's right. So, which kind of sucks, because they are probably going to beat up on Conference USA because, I mean, granted, they've been playing a lot of those Group of 5 teams, but even the non-Group of 5 teams they won their bowl game last year, if I'm remembering correctly. But who knows? Okay, let's preview this weekend, because
you don't want to talk Michigan State.
No,
the aftermath
probably
of
should.
That.
I mean, you know what I'm doing with that?
I more want to talk about the inappropriate statements made by Mel Tucker and Michigan State in general.
So let's do this. really, we already heard our talk about Michigan and how they performed.
Oh, no, I'm not going to talk about the game. I want to talk about after.
We'll get to that. I'm just setting everybody up here.
Okay, all right.
Okay? Tuck in.
Yep.
I'm about to let you go.
Okay.
Michigan handily defeated Michigan State in Michigan State in East Lansing.
Nope.
Lansing.
Nope. In Ann Arbor.
Oh, it was at a home game. I'm sorry. They defeated them. Dude, I don't remember. It's freaking Wednesday.
The big block M at center at midfield that Michigan only passed like 4,000 times in the game, didn't give it away.
Dude, I don't remember. Anyway, the game was sold out. There were a ton of people there. It was a night game. It was a ton of fun. And Michigan never let off the gas, which is what you do in a rivalry game. I wouldn't blame Ohio State if they ran up the score on Michigan. I wouldn't blame Alabama when they do it on Auburn, and Tennessee if they did it on Vanderbilt. I don't know who, Florida, whatever. Okay, I don't do that. They ran up the score. The passing game looked a little rough. The offensive line made up for it. End of story. Except not. After the game, we already heard last week. It was James Franklin. I guess it was 2 weeks ago, technically, when Michigan played Penn State, that they got chippy in the shared tunnel to the locker rooms at Michigan Stadium during halftime. James Franklin came out and said, "Oh my gosh, you guys need to do something." Jim Harbaugh came out and said, "You guys started it." And then brought in extra security for the Michigan State game. So there was extra security. The refs were on it and vigilant. So clearly there was stuff going on in the conference, in the head of the conference, because the refs were immediately, both at halftime and after the game, went to make sure the teams didn't, get chippy or anything. This did not stop about, 5 to 8 Michigan State players. The polite way of saying it is curb stomping.
Yeah.
A Michigan player. Two Michigan players. After the game, mind you, both the head coach, Mel Tucker and Jim Harbaugh. After the game, I watched it. They shook hands. They were like, "Yep," and then they both tried to corral their teams. It was very simple. All Michigan State had to do was go into their locker room. Michigan was going to wait 5 minutes and then go into their locker room. That's how it works. I don't know how this happened. Michigan came out, both president, athletic director, and Jim Harbaugh said, "This is atrocious. I can't believe you let this happen." It's a bad look for these young men at Michigan State. Guys, they beat you. I get that you're rivals. The game's over. You want to get chippy on the field? You want to get chippy during the game? Throw some punches, get rowdy? You want to get chippy on Twitter or in the parking lot? That's fine. But ganging up on somebody? Micaiah, your thoughts, because you probably saw this story develop more.
Yeah, so my thoughts, first and foremost, are Michigan State players basically waited at the top of the tunnel, and the two first Michigan players that came down that tunnel, they jumped them. And they were kicking them while they were down with cleats on, and they were swinging their helmets at them. So it was a full Myles Garrett against Mason Rudolph situation. And 4 have been suspended. Jermon Green, who was one of them, has hired a lawyer to file civil charges against them. I'm sure he will absolutely win that. It's going to lead
one of the Michigan players is filing civil?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know what the other one's doing, but the other one will probably jump on the case for this guy. So again, it was basically 8 players against 2 Michigan players, however, one at a time, sort of deal. But they happened simultaneously. According to the video and everyone else on social media who took video, this was not Michigan players walking down the tunnel, chirping at them first, and really kind of getting in the face of Michigan State, and then Michigan State taking it too far. Michigan players did not start this. They were coming down the tunnel. In the case of Jermon Green, 2 last names hyphenated, he was coming down the tunnel to get changed early to go meet his dad, as he does at the end of every single home game. So he was going down the tunnel to get changed to go see his dad. Michigan State players were waiting for him, got jumped. Mel Tucker said, so Harbaugh made his appropriate comments. It was absolutely atrocious, et cetera, et cetera. The police are going to get involved. Charges need to be filed, et cetera. 100% correct. What I have a problem with is Mel Tucker comes out and goes, first and foremost, I want to issue an apology to both universities. Stop right there, you motherfucker. Both universities? This is not I'm not saying the word University of Michigan because this is not one of those situations. The rivalry is way out the window. You apologize to Michigan University and those players by name first and foremost. And then you can bring back the whole rivalry. This is Michigan State, 100%. You do not say both universities. You are not apologetic. Your university is apologizing to my university. This is a combination, and this started with Mark D'Antonio, how they wanted to make the Michigan State rivalry feel bigger than the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. And D'Antoni, when he was there, his players would always kind of do dirty things. Denard Robinson, they would twist his face mask, grab his ankles, twist that. Way back in the early 2000s, when Michigan was lining up on their half of the 51 year, they locked arms and basically walked the entire length of the field and kind of ran over Michigan players, wouldn't unlock their arms, sort of deal. This has kind of always been Michigan State fighting with the chip on their shoulder and just doing enough to poke the bear to try to make Michigan realize that this rivalry needs to be bigger. Well, it's bigger now. Next year, if this score is not 30-plus in favor of Michigan, something is drastically wrong. The NCAA needs to investigate the entire Michigan State program and how Mel Tucker conducts his business, how his coordinators conduct his business. I want a full investigation of Michigan State with the law, the internal campus, whatever that is, and the NCAA. And I want punishment for Mel Tucker and the defensive coordinator. I never want to see these players in the NCAA again. And honestly, I hope their football careers are over. Okay? If this is one-on-one, that's fine. This is 8-1 with helmets and cleats. Are you kidding me? It was Bush League. It was cheap. It was not even remotely sportsmanlike. It went so far beyond this is just rivalry emotions, bad loss emotion. And it was two defensive players. It was the guys who shut your offense down, and it was defensive players against defensive players. So I want to apologize to both universities. Get the F out of here. Figure out how to apologize correctly. Oh my goodness, I'm worked up. I'm angry. Michigan State, honestly, and this is an overreaction, but I'm going to realize it's an overreaction. Michigan State should not be able to play football the rest of the season. Because if
a bowl game banned,
if 8 players are doing this, then what are the other players doing this? And we're all, this is a team sport.
Also, where are people?
This is a team sport. This is a team sport. This is a team sport. Okay, if this is a team sport, then the active 8 set the mood for all the other players, which means that if they're getting banned, then all the other players get banned. Michigan State should get a postseason ban this year because of that. And Mel Tucker should get suspended at the very least.
I think there's a certain aspect, in sports about these rivalries, right? There's something to them that goes beyond the field, and I get that. Michigan, Ohio State has always been chippy. We've wiped our cleats on Michigan State's middle of the field when they do their arm linking thing.
Yep.
And Michigan has been tried to get out of the way and let them do their thing before. But if you have a problem with somebody and you want to have violence on them, first of all, the manly thing to do is not to get 7 of your buddies and wait for them and jump them. Dude, if you're not manly enough to go talk to a guy, you can chirp at him all you want in the tunnel. You can chirp at him on the field. You can do some dirty stuff on the field. I'm okay with that. As someone who does that, if I get annoyed, I'm okay with that. Life-threatening stuff, that's on your own time. That's not on the university's time. You have a problem with a personal player, tell him to meet you outside and wait for him. And then tweet at him when he doesn't show up. I'm okay with you guys throwing punches but it's only 1v1. If you guys want to get physical, go outside and do it. We don't do that here. We don't wait for people. And that goes for all sports, both professional and collegiate. And for my sake, also recreation. But I don't.
Catch me outside. How about that?
But I don't get that way in recreation. Luckily, I've never been in a league, and I've always been the one that needed to calm down. Cooler heads have always prevailed. But you don't get to do this. I don't know why this hasn't been a bigger thing. We're more worried about Steve Nash losing his job yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
And Dan Snyder possibly selling the Washington Commanders because the feds just got involved.
It's because it's Michigan again. If this was Michigan and Ohio State players waited outside, oh, you bet. But you know that you're wrong when Paul Feinbaum, the Harbaugh hater, comes out and says, Mel Tucker, what WTF was that apology? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, when literally everybody's voice is, first of all, it took them a couple days to suspend players, and I get they wanted to do an internal investigation, whatever, right? They didn't get to play next game. 4 players have been suspended. They're continuing looking into it. Police are now involved, etc. But when everyone's turning to the head coach and being like, what kind of apology is that? Mel Tucker always looks mean. I mean, on Saturday, it was me. He's not head coach. At this point in time, through 3 seasons, he had a lousy season in 2020, a great season because he got a whole bunch of transfer in Kenneth Walker, who's now ripping it up for the Seattle Seahawks. So NFL changing talent. He got NFL changing talent. And now this year he's terrible again. Combined with this incident and the fact that he just looks like he's a mean SOB, honestly, Michigan State should eat the $85 million or whatever it is that they owe him and go find someone else. Because no one ever is going to respect Mel Tucker from this point in time. No one at Michigan. Harbaugh is going to make sure that they lose over the next 2 to 3 years, as long as J.J. McCarthy and the core that this happened to is still there. Michigan State's probably going to lose games by 20 points to Michigan. And if
they're lucky.
And Harbaugh is going to run up the score. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 42-20 or whatever it is next year. And there's 5 seconds left, and Michigan throws a Hail Mary to try to pour it on. I would absolutely dump it on, and then I would walk to midfield with Mel Tucker coming in for a handshake, point my finger at him, and be like, "This is what you get."
And then shake his hand and walk.
No, I wouldn't even shake his hand, but be like, "This is what you get, and we're coming back next year."
Always shake the guy's hand.
Absolutely not.
It's hard to tell someone to go F themselves if you don't shake their hand.
Absolutely not. I put my finger
from
right
experience. Speaking from experience, Micaiah, this is how you trash talk. If you want to do this the right way, you shake his hand and say you did this to yourself, and then you walk away.
Oh no, I will point my finger right in his face and be like, "This is what you get," and it's going to be so much worse next year.
Here's the issue. It's way scarier and means way more when you're right in a dude's face. It is such a power move. You go.
I understand.
This is what you did to yourself, and then get him to shove you and walk away.
But it's the dad, because Harbaugh's a dad. He's like the ultimate dad, right?
Yeah. Okay.
It is the dad finger in his face of, "This is what you get. You did this to yourself. Oh yeah, next year it's going to be by 40."
Right. You're always going to be little brother at this point. You've done yourself.
Yeah. And then you go all on the media.
Congrats, you played yourself.
Yeah. you go all next year. In the media, whatever,
well,
after,
Jack,
before.
I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up.
And you're just like, we told them this was coming. They did this to themselves. And then the Michigan
killing me,
State boosters
Smalls.
will be like, well, we got to fire him because as long as he's here, the score's going to be Michigan winning by 4 touchdowns.
As many as they can, yeah.
Yep.
Well, now that we've kind of let off our steam,
Woo!
we're kind of gonna skip the preview. I'll go over like the big games here real quick, the ranked games as I normally do.
Yeah, not many.
But we'll make them not too many. We'll make them fast. Tulane plays Tulsa, so that one's kind of important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm actually want to see this. Yeah, Tulane's favored by 7.5.
Sure.
So, no. Okay. 12 o'clock games, not too much. Ohio State takes on Northwestern. TCU plays against Texas Tech. That game's the big noon kickoff game. That should be a fun game for TCU fans. North Carolina plays their rival in Virginia. That should be a good game for North Carolina fans. And like I said, Tulane plays Tulsa. Nothing really much to mention. Florida, Texas A&M. That will be a fun game for those two teams that have nothing else to lose. Major news. Sorry. The person who we said shouldn't get fired because he was building a culture finally got fired.
Yeah, finally. Who we said just needed to be fired because everyone knew it was coming. So, yeah.
So there's that. This is Chris. I forget his last name. The Auburn's head coach.
Does he try to go and take the Nebraska job? Or do you need a place where the boosters will just give money and then walk away? Like obviously you can't do SEC.
You need to go take an offensive coordinator job in a Power 5 for a year and then go find a head coaching gig.
But also,
like go to Michigan for a year.
But I understand that, and and I get that, and that would be
or
smart.
Alabama,
or Alabama. But if you go take Nebraska, you're going to get some time.
Yeah.
Because listen, he's probably a 500 coach.
Or Iowa
in the SEC. Oh yeah, or Iowa. Listen, you're going to get some time in the Big Ten.
It's really the Big Ten. You should go to the Big Ten. He should go to the Big Ten. He's going to do well in the Big Ten because Big Ten's about culture, unlike those crackheads and meth heads down in the SEC who just go for the next high. Okay, moving back. 3:30 games. Obviously, we got the big one on CBS in Athens. That's number 1 Tennessee taking on number 3 or number 1, depending on which poll. Georgia, that's going to be a fun one. You have to make sure you watch that. Oregon's going to beat up on Colorado on ESPN. Penn State's going to beat up on Indiana, most likely on ABC. Illinois, I hope now, beats up on Michigan State on the Big Ten Network.
Give it to them, Illinois.
Oklahoma State hopefully stops their skid with a win at Kansas at 3:30 on FS1, but that one could go either way. Same thing for Syracuse at Pittsburgh, 3:30. UCF at Memphis, also at 3:30, but I don't know why I'm saying that one. It's UCF. Big night game down south in Tiger Stadium. Go Tigers! Number 6 Alabama goes into their next state rival. No, not next state rival. Sorry, 2 states over. LSU in Tiger Stadium. That should be a fun game.
Yeah, I think that SEC really kind of showcased this week. Absolutely. Don't forget, Michigan's going to...
They're next down on the list.
Rutgers. I'm just kidding. Don't watch that game.
Yeah, that's a game on the Big Ten Network for those you diehard Rutgers and Michigan fans. Number 24, who should not be ranked, Texas, is going to Manhattan to take on number 13, Kansas State. We'll see how real both those teams are. Good win for either team, depending on how it goes, in my opinion. Wake Forest 21 takes on 22. How is NC State ranked?
I don't know, especially since they lost their starting quarterback. I don't understand.
Wake Forest is going to NC State. That's on the ACC network at 8. FS1, UCLA takes on Arizona State at 9:30. And California goes to the Coliseum to take on USC. I have one other game, but you sound like you have a comment.
No, my only other comment would be let me know when I can get started on my top 5. And Clemson goes to Notre Dame.
Oh, I missed that one. Thank you for cleaning that up.
Notre Dame, besides their loss to Stanford, which for whatever reason Notre Dame always has one of these losses during the course of their year, Notre Dame is actually, from their first 2 games, have actually balanced out quite nicely and is actually 4-2 over their last 6. It makes for a very interesting, compelling game because Notre Dame can also play really good defense, and they're starting to get that running game going a little bit.
Notre Dame is good at home, at night. Game.
I'm sorry, they're 5-1 over their last 6 games.
So upset alert.
Yes.
7:30 NBC and
Peacock,
which is a little streaming service action there for you besides all the ESPN Plus games. Also, upset alert. JMU, who's lost their last 2, goes to Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville has had a little bit of a run, beating number 10 Wake Forest, Pitt, UVA. So they are 5-3. Louisville is 5-3. JMU's losing 7.5 points. So Louisville's getting 7.5 points. The ESPN analytics are giving Louisville a 79% chance of winning, but the metrics, guys, is that JMU scores the ball, and even when they're losing, besides Marshall, who was able to shut them down last week, they've been able to score the ball. So just watch for an upset. I know we've been talking about JMU, but if you want to take a 2-game parlay with Notre Dame and JMU, go for it. All right, Micaiah, I had a much easier time finding my 5 this week. I have no idea what my record was because I forgot to go back and listen, and I didn't make the bets.
Oh,
so excellent. I could have gone 5 for 5 last week. Who knows? I could have won myself a ton of money, but I don't know. Only the listeners do.
Excellent. Well, my 5, I do have 5 this week instead of 4. I did have some difficulty with it, but I kind of read in between the lines, if you were, and I tried to find the meaningful games in terms of how it will play with conference kind of championship and conference title games. So I just want to make sure I update everything appropriately. Just give me 1 second. They're 18, blah, blah, blah.
Do you want me to go with my 5?
Nope. I got it. All right.
All right.
Let's just start off right off the bat with the hot game of the day. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go backwards to forwards because this is about how it's going to go. All right, number 5, Clemson going to unranked Notre Dame. Boy, is this not a sexy pick on paper, but let me just tell you, we kind of already talked. Notre Dame 5-1 since their 0-2 start and a close loss to Ohio State. Notre Dame has left on their schedule a top 5 team in Clemson and a top 10 team in USC. If they win out and beat those both 2, they're going to be somewhere around 10-3. They will be 10-3 because they're probably going to beat Boston College and who has ever, I think it's Navy is left. So Notre Dame can really finish the season strong and kind of make a bid for a New Year's 6 here kind of down the stretch. Clemson has everything to lose at number 4. As I said, they were number 5. They're number 5 on the AP. They're number 4 now. Clemson has everything to lose. One loss, I think they're done and they're out of the college football playoff, even if they run the table. They and win the ACC championship. They need to win out and win the ACC championship because of Michigan, Alabama, TCU lurking in the shadows. DJ Uiagalelei, let's not forget, last game he played, he was benched against Syracuse for a true freshman. So how will he respond to that? Notre Dame is coming off their best win and their best complete game against Syracuse in a 44-21 win. Clemson needs to look good. DJ Uiagalelei needs to look good. I think Clemson's defense is stout enough. Let's not forget Notre Dame's defense is stout enough. I still don't trust the quarterback play of Notre Dame. I think this is a close game. I think both teams find ways to put up points. I like Clemson to win, and I like the over of 44.5 to hit. Number 18, OK State, coming off of one of the most embarrassing losses a top 10 team has ever put on paper versus a ranked team or not, getting absolutely blown out on the road and shut out on the road 48-0. They go to Kansas. Kansas, since that 5-0 start, has lost their last 3. They're sitting 1 game away for bowl eligibility. Kansas State needs to win. They have 1 Big 12 loss, so they got to win out and get some help. Jalen Daniels, the quarterback for Kansas, might be back. Both teams give up 30 points a game, but score 39 points a game, so they are very similar. This is going to be high scoring. This is going to be high entertaining. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas comes away with a win. However, I have to take the angry, pissed off, well-coached, tenured Oklahoma State Cowboys in a close one, but minus 2.5, I think they win by a field goal. The over somewhere in the 60s. If that gets to the low 60s, 61, 62, take it, baby. But I think the number was hanging out at 68, 69, so I kind of shied away from that. Number 24, for whatever reason, Texas, going to number 13, Kansas State, or number 10, Kansas State in Micaiah's rankings, okay? Kansas State is second in the Big 12. They went out, they're in against TCU. Texas is still in it. They need to win this game. They need some help down the stretch for Oklahoma State to lose one more time, maybe to Kansas. Who knows? Okay? Sorry, I lost my place. Kansas likes to run the ball. They run for 228 yards a game. They don't like to pass the ball a whole lot. 168 passing yards per game. Oh, and BT Dubs. Will Howard play? I'm not sure if Adrian Martinez played. Will Howard is a better thrower of the football, which might give Texas problems. Adrian Martinez likes to run the ball more, so you got to prepare for both quarterbacks. Last time Texas was on the field, they blew a 17-point lead to Oklahoma State, and Quinn Ewers did not look either good or healthy. So how is he going to work coming off a bye? Texas has shown me enough that if Quinn Ewers is healthy, they can stick it out. I like them going on the road and beating Kansas State. You take Texas to win, minus the 2.5. I think this game is close. I would stay away from the over-under. We're getting to the big games, fellas. Number 6 still, yes, sorry. Number 6 Alabama going to number 10 LSU. They are both coming off the bye. Listen, LSU has that loss to Florida State. They only have one SEC loss, and it's to the number 1 team in the country, Tennessee. Guess what? LSU beats Bama. LSU's in the driver's seat because they beat Ole Miss to win the SEC West and represent the West in the SEC title game. This has all sorts of storylines swirling around it. Bama rushes for 210 yards a game. LSU allows 242 yards a game. Stop right there. That's the story. Can Bama run against this front 7 of LSU? Oh, and by the way, Alabama still has the 2 best players in college football on their team in Will Anderson and Bryce Young. This game is going to be at night. The fake Death Valley, as in LSU's version of Death Valley, is a much different atmosphere than day Death Valley. This game will be close. LSU plus the 12.5, but Bama to win. And finally, the game of the day, maybe the year, maybe the month, maybe the week. It is number 1 Tennessee going on the road to number 3 Georgia. This is Tennessee's first true road test. Don't give me that LSU game was a true road test. It really wasn't. The game was over before it started. It was also at noon. The best, most elite offense in college football this year takes on a great Georgia defense. This Georgia defense is giving up like 250 yards per game. Tennessee is averaging 550 yards per game. Let's not get it twisted, though. Georgia can play some offense. Georgia's offense averages 530 yards offensively a game. Simeon, I don't think you knew that. This is the toughest.
No, I didn't.
This is the toughest test on the road Tennessee will face all year. The difference maker for this one, Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, the elite tight ends that Georgia has. Brock Bowers should be in the Heisman conversation. He is not. He made a ridiculous catch against Florida. Go YouTube that real quick. Lots of points being scored because I still don't trust Tennessee's defense, I should say. I trust the offense. Georgia has an excellent offense in and of themselves. You take the over of 65.5, and Georgia wins because it's at home defending national champions. However, if Tennessee wins, Hendon Hooker's winning the Heisman.
I think that's fair. Do you want to go over just a quick?
Yeah, a quick summary. Tennessee, Georgia, going to be the game of the month. You take the over 65.5. I think Georgia wins and upsets the number one team in the nation. Bama goes on the road at night to LSU. Because it's at night at LSU, the game is close, but Bama wins. Texas gets an upset win over Kansas State coming off the bye, as long as Quinn Ewers looks healthy. Oklahoma State wins a shootout, close one in Kansas. However, I would not be surprised if that swings the other way. And finally, Clemson gets a much-needed win over Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's starting to turn things around a little bit. 5-1 in their last 6. You take the over 44.5.
By the way, Micaiah, we've now called 3 underdog wins. Technically, I don't know if with the power ranks, but according to Vegas, we've taken 3 underdogs this week.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. That was the Power 5 and the fun stuff. Now it comes for Simeon, who has a weird record of about right over 500. Let's call it 60%.
Hey, by the way, I went 1-3 last week, so don't listen to me. However, I'm still 3 games above 500, so I'm making you money.
And like I said, I have no idea how well I could have actually hit for once.
Right, you could have done research in your homework, but you didn't. That's okay.
Well, you know what? Okay, whatever. We're going to, I believe this is Conference USA. Marshall Thundering Herd, Old Dominion Monarchs. I really got nothing for this over other than the over-under is 46.5, and neither of these teams, like the games that they play against good competition. I mean, I should say Marshall can play some defense, but they can also play some offense, and Old Dominion can play some offense. I just think 46.5 is a little low for this game. If this game was at 47, I wouldn't take it. I'm taking the over here at 46.5, assuming I'm getting it at 46.5. UMass and UConn. The spread is plus 16 on this game.
This was the loser bowl from last year. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
We were all pumped for this.
And the loser bowl is here again. 1-7 UMass Minutemen taking on the 4-5 UConn Huskies. Both independent. Don't know how that is the case. Guys, UMass has lost to Temple. That's how 28-0. That's how bad UMass is.
It's not great.
The quarterback has more interceptions than he does touchdowns.
Again, I don't understand how there are fans of lower-level football teams.
He has thrown for 257 yards on the season.
And that's the high-scoring pass or the high-yardage passer.
Are they just a triple option team? Anyway, plus 16, I'm taking UMass plus 16 because there's no way UConn is going to put up 17 points. They're going to win, don't mind you, but only by like 14. They're not going to win by a ton. Alrighty. UTEMP versus Rice. Guys, I have no idea. I had to pull this one out. Rice looks better on paper. I just like them. UTEMP has been inconsistent as best. I'm taking Rice just outright, minus 190. Again, outright. San Jose State Spartans taking on the Colorado State Rams. The spread here is 24. The over-under is 45. Colorado State can't score for bleep. And neither can San Jose, so I don't want to take the over-under at 45. However, it is tempting.
Take the under. Take it.
You want me to take the under?
I want you to take the under.
All right, just for Micaiah, ladies and gentlemen, we're switching from the outright to the under of 45. Mind you, if both of these points per game score the amount of points per game they get, they're at 39.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Take that under, baby.
All right. And last but not least, guys, we're going to the game of the week if you're a small conference game. This is the UTSA Roadrunners sitting at 6-2, 4-0 in conference play, taking on the University of Alabama at Birmingham Dragons, a.k.a. the Blazers. Guys, the spread is even according to Caesars. The money line is 110 both. Over-under is 52. Guys, I get both of these teams can play defense, but there's no way this game's not going to be awesome. And I'm not even going to watch it. I'm taking the over at 52 against UTSA and UAB. Again, over at UTSA, UAB 330. 1030, I'm taking the under San Diego State's Colorado State. UTEP, I'm taking not outright. I'm taking Rice outright. And I'm taking the UMass plus the points. And then Marshall and Old Dominion at 2 p.m. I'm taking the over. Yeah, that was fun, I guess. I don't know what I'm doing, and neither do we. This has been the worstest podcast in the world if I can find the right number.
There it is.
Oh, except the fact that our music died. I forgot about that.
I can hear it.
Oh, you can hear it? Because I can't. That's awesome. This has been the 4th and 1 podcast. It's blasting in people's ears right now. Anchor.fm/4th and 1.
Wash your hands, you filthy animals. Instagram, 4th and 1 podcast.